David Gilmour. You ever hear a single guitar note and feel your whole chest tighten? That's what David Gilmour did to millions of people. He wasn't just playing solos, he was opening a wound and letting us hear the pain inside it. The Black Strat didn't just make sounds, it carried prayers, grief, and memories that will outlive all of us. From the aching cries of "Shine On, You Crazy Diamond" to the eternal stillness of "Comfortably Numb," Gilmour didn't just perform, he translated human suffering into beauty. But here's the thing. Behind those breathtaking solos was a man carrying scars deeper than anyone ever saw. A childhood shaped by silence, friendships torn apart by madness, and the betrayal of being pushed to the edges of the very band he helped carry. At 79 years old, Gilmour has seen triumph, tragedy, and everything in between. And yet, the real story isn't just about the music. It's about how he kept going when silence, grief, and loss nearly swallowed him whole. David Gilmour's beginning. Born in Cambridge, March 6, 1946. David grew up in what looked like a perfect middle-class family. His father, Douglas, was a university lecturer in zoology, and his mother, Sylvia, was a teacher who later became a film editor. On the outside, it was stability, but inside those walls, it was a silence that cut deeper than shouting ever could. Dinner tables weren't filled with laughter. They were filled with logic, intellect, and distance. Years later, Gilmour would describe it as a forgotten void. No chaos, no violence, just indifference. That silence became the soil he grew in. When his mother gave him a guitar at 10 years old, she couldn't have imagined she'd just changed music history. Alone in his room, no teacher, no guide, just the radio and his determination, David bent strings until they wept. While other kids played football, he carved loneliness into sound. By 13, he was already staring into the abyss of mortality, wondering how short life really was. The Hunger Years. By the early 60 seconds, while school friends Syd Barrett and Roger Waters were making waves in London's psychedelic scene, David was stuck grinding in small bands like Joker's Wild. He chased music across Europe, sleeping hungry, playing in cafes, and even pawning his own guitar to afford food. Imagine that the same hands that would one day silence stadiums, strumming for coins on the streets of Paris. Then came the gut punch moment. He walked into a London studio and saw Syd Barrett again. Not the brilliant wild friend he once knew, but a broken man. Years of drugs and mental illness had left Syd a shell. His eyes were vacant, his guitar slack. It was heartbreaking and terrifying. Soon, Pink Floyd called David not to replace Syd at first, but to patch the holes when Syd couldn't perform. For a short, surreal period, there were 5 people on stage, 4 playing, 1 lost in the shadows. Eventually, the cruelty of reality hit. They stopped picking Syd up for shows. Just like that, David Gilmour became the lead guitarist of Pink Floyd and carried the guilt of leaving his friend behind for the rest of his life. Finding the voice of Pink Floyd. The late 60 seconds were shaky. Without Syd, Floyd were adrift. Their shows felt uncertain. David sometimes turned his back to the crowd, unsure if the music still had meaning. But slowly, through film soundtracks and experimentation, something started to take shape. Then came 1971's Echoes. 23 minutes of raw beauty. The opening ping of Gilmour's guitar felt like a lighthouse cutting through endless night. For the first time since Syd's collapse, the band had a heartbeat, and that heartbeat was David. From there, the floodgates opened. Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals, The Wall. Every record stamped with Gilmour's voice and guitar. His solos weren't just technical brilliance, they were emotional earthquakes. That single bend in Comfortably Numb? It's not just a note, it's a scream disguised as melody. But while the world worshipped, David was haunted. Wish You Were Here wasn't just a song, it was a funeral for Syd. Shine On You Crazy Diamond was grief, carved into vinyl. Each performance dragged the wound open again. The battles within. By the late 70 seconds, things inside Floyd turned bitter. Waters pushed harder, his lyrics dripping with anger. Gilmour fought to keep the soul alive through his guitar. In the studio, Comfortably Numb became a battleground. Waters, demanding despair, Gilmour, answering with fire. Together, they created magic. But behind the curtain, it was war. The collapse came with the final cut. Waters dominated. Gilmour said he felt like a session player in my own band. Then Waters quit and tried to dissolve the band completely. Headlines declared Pink Floyd dead. For Gilmour, it was more than professional humiliation. It was erasure. But he didn't give up. Silent, determined, he pushed forward. A momentary lapse of reason proved critics wrong. The division bell reminded the world Pink Floyd wasn't one man. And when the Live 8 reunion came in 2005, Gilmour, Waters, Wright, and Mason stood side by side one last time. Their version of Comfortably Numb wasn't just music, it was resurrection. A moment fans still call miraculous. But just 3 years later, tragedy returned. Wright, David's quiet brother-in-arms, died of cancer at 65. First Sid, then Rick. The ghosts were piling up. Love, family, and second chances. Through all the storms, David's personal life had its own fractures. His first marriage to model Ginger Hasselbein gave him 4 children, but collapsed under the weight of constant touring and distance. The divorce in 1990 left deep scars, memories of absence and regret he rarely spoke about. Then, light. In the 90 seconds, David met novelist Polly Samson. She wasn't just a partner, she was a collaborator, a muse, someone who gave words when he had none. They married in 1994, and together raised a blended family of 8 children. Polly wrote lyrics for much of David's later work, including High Hopes and his solo records. Their bond turned pain into partnership, silence into song. Today, family defines Gilmour's life more than fame. His children and grandchildren orbit his world. Some even share the stage with him, voices weaving into his music, turning performances into family portraits. The legacy of a quiet genius. David's fortune could have turned him into a rock star cliché. Instead, he gave most of it away. He sold his London home and donated every penny to fight homelessness. In 2019, he auctioned 120 guitars, including the legendary Black Strat, and raised over $21 million for climate causes. "My guitars served me well," he said. "Now it's time for them to serve the planet." These days, you'll find him by the Sussex coast, or on the Astoria, his floating studio on the River Thames. His hair is white, his steps slower, but when his fingers touch the strings, time stops. A single note, fragile and infinite, still carries everything: grief, beauty, silence, survival. So, here's the truth. David Gilmour's legacy isn't just about selling millions of records or filling stadiums. It's about what he gave us in those notes. He showed that silence doesn't have to destroy you. It can become the canvas for something eternal. If you've ever closed your eyes during one of his solos and felt something you couldn't explain, grief, joy, or just the weight of being alive, then you've already been touched by his gift. So tell me, what was your first Gilmour moment? Was it Dark Side of the Moon? Wish You Were Here? Or maybe just one soaring solo that still follows you to this day? Drop it below, leave a like if this story hit you, and let's carry his music further into the silence and into the light.